God, that was a giant. That was a freaking giant. And I completely screwed it up. I missed like freaking an 8 or 9 pounder. But kind of figured something out with the frog. There's pads all over the place, but you really got to find the ones that have something behind them, like stand-up pads behind them, or something like cane line or something. And that seems to be key. These fish are pretty skinny. So I can't get bit flipping, so gotta do something different.
Froggy frog. As you guys might imagine, we're going to be talking about floating frogs. And floating frogs can be killer for getting some big bites. You can put them in a lot of different places. It's a real subtle presentation, and it's definitely something that's kind of reminds me of flipping to an extent. It has a real subtlety, a real nuance on how you present it. And it can be a real quirky, kind of fun bite to get into. And you get some big bites, which always makes any kind of fishing a lot of fun. I'm going to break down the system that I use when I'm thinking about frog fishing and what kind of frog I want to be using. I break them up into kind of two categories. I have my grass and heavy cover frogs, and then I have frogs that are more geared towards open water, docks, skipping under brush and that. Let's start though with the rods and kind of like the terminal setup that I'm going to be using. I got two different rods that I'm running when I'm frog fishing. The one that you saw in the vid is my beef stick. This is my heavy cover, heavy duty, big frog tossing rod. And this is a Powell Endurance 725. This is a beef stick. This is a big, heavy duty rod. It's got enough tip to walk any kind of frog that you want, but it's got enough backbone to boat flip a 5-6 pounder once you get hooked into that kind of fish. It's a great setup. I've caught a lot of fish on it, and it really works well, especially when you have that Florida heavy cover situation and you want to be tossing them big frogs. The other rod I have is, once again, it's a Powell Endurance series. This is the 714. The 714 is slightly shorter and just a hair lighter than my beef stick. This guy is the one that I'm going to employ when I'm skipping frogs, throwing them in open water, or I just want to throw some smaller presentations where the cover might be a little bit lighter. It's got a little softer tip to it, which makes it a lot easier to do that roundabout cast onto the docks, but it's got enough backbone to land, a 5+ pound fish. Both of these rods are set up with Shimano Curados. They're just solid reels, and I don't run into any issues with burning them out when I'm cranking the drag all the way down. I have them both spooled up with 50-pound Power Pro. I've tried 65, and you lose some casting distance as well as action on the frog. If you're in a situation where you're fishing for some smaller fish or you're fishing open water, you can probably go down to 30 or 40. But overall, it's been my experience that 50 is going to cover you in the heavy cover, in the open water. It gives you the casting distance as well as the beef to really get those fish out. Let's talk frogs now. The way I break it down, as I mentioned, is going to be your grass style frogs, which are usually a little bit bigger body or a little more heavy duty, and then your skipping / open water style frogs. And one of my favorites is the river to sea bullywah frog. Comes in a variety of sizes, a bunch of killer colors, and it walks amazingly, even in the heavy cover. I prefer to go with a little bigger style frog when I'm fishing the grass and the heavy cover. Why I do that is when you're dragging over stuff, you want that frog to kind of sit back and settle in the pockets and things along those lines, because that's where you're going to get most of your bites, when you're stopping in those little pockets. But the beauty of it is, by going to a bigger body frog like this, the soft body that these new style frogs offer still walks really, really sweet, just with subtle little twitches. And that's really key to getting some of them bigger bites and triggering those fish. The other heavy cover frog that I'm using is the Copper's Live Target. It's this guy right here. Once again, it's a softer body frog, which gives it a great walking action, and it comes in a ton of colors, also a ton of sizes. And that's really important. It's got beefy hooks on it, and you can really tow them out with it. You get that subtle walk, and you got the heavy duty terminal tackle to back up those big bites. The other sort of division I make when it comes to frog fishing is going to be open water / skipping / kind of like brush frogs, I guess you could call them. And a lot of times I'm going to throw those on my lighter pile, the 714. And basically what I'm looking for in those frogs is a little tighter walk or a little more subtlety, I guess you could say. And my two favorites when it comes to that pretty much cover anything I need is, there's the Spro Poppin' Frog. This guy's great when your fish are targeting brim or shad. It skips really well, and what's a real cool trick when you're skipping docks with it is it doesn't move forward as much, so you really juice that dock. You're keeping that bait in the strike zone under the dock for the longest period possible, which is hugely important. Comes in a variety of colors and sizes, covers you in just about any situation. One of my favorites, and what's really cool for open water fishing, is the Jackal Iobi frog. This frog walks like a spook. It'll blow your mind when you put it on there and start twitching the rod. She just S's back and forth, which is sweet when you're dealing with water that's a little bit clearer, or you have fish that are a little bit tweaky. A great application for this is when your spook bite or your topwater bite dies out a little bit, go ahead and throw this thing in open water. You'll be amazed at the results. Once again, no, the Iobi frog comes in a variety of colors. It's a nice soft body, got a great walk to it, and it skips way back under the brush and under the docks. So that's how I break it down. I got my grass and my heavy cover / bigger kind of frogs, bigger fish frogs, I guess you could call them. And then I have my little more subtle selection that I'm going to use for getting under docks or in clear water situations. And that kind of covers it. I try to keep it pretty simple. I got my two rods to kind of cover my different actions that I'm going to need for different sizes and different styles of frogs. But that kind of does it. So next time you're out on the water, pick up a floating frog, see what it does. You got some applications and some tools there, and hopefully it busts some big ones for you, dude. All right, tight lines, guys.
second time that fish bit. Nice spot right there. Bite me. My fish blew up on it once. I missed him. And then she blew up on it again. That is fun. Gotta get used to this though. You really gotta reel up on them, and the wind's blowing, so it's blowing your line under the pads. You get her back. And then there's like 4 more sections just like that, little isolated pads. Isn't that hard to catch a big one here? But just figuring it out, having some fun with it. It's kind of out of my element too, because it's really skinny water that these fish get into. And the water is gonna be like 90. It's like 89 right now, and they're still in like a foot of water. It's just kind of crazy, dude. That was cool. That was cool.